All right, it is just a few minutes past 6, so we will get started with this first in our Boardroom 2021 series. We're so glad to have so many of you here tonight. I'm Bonnie McEwen with the Northwest District Office of the State Library, and I'm joined by Nancy Medema, who is the Program Director at the State Library. Our registration numbers last year for the Boardroom 2020 series were just super good, which is evidence that this kind of programming is valued and needed by our library board members and directors across the state. It's very gratifying. So here's two equally impressive numbers in this new year. And I can tell you that tonight there were 138 people registered for the program tonight. Online learning is here to stay, you know. We've all become so practiced at it.
And that's not including the people who are meeting in groups.
Yes, indeed. And be sure to tell us that too, if you would. If you have several people who are joining you together, either all together in the library's meeting room, or maybe you have board members who are logging in from home, let us know how many to credit from your library who are listening in tonight. Let me share the slides. And again, this represents the first in a series of Boardroom webinars for 2021. Here's where we're headed tonight. This is our plan. We will preview the contents of the new Iowa Library Trustees Handbook. Nancy and I are two people at the State Library who are very happy to be able to say that the handbook, yes, that the handbook is finished and ready for your enjoyment. So we will take a look at some of the content and the features of the new handbook. We'll start first with some slides, but then eventually we will go live to the trustees page on the State Library's website. We'll show you how to access the handbook there and some other resources that live there on the trustees page as well. Please chime in at any point with any questions or observations. You can open your mics for that if you want to, but if you'd rather keep your mics muted, that's okay too. You can always use the chat space that you'll find on typically parked on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you're going to text your questions or observations, be sure that you've got it toggled to read everyone in meeting so that everyone can see the questions. And as Nancy and I share this presentation back and forth, we will commit to paying attention to your chat and any questions, and do be sure if we haven't circled back to your questions that you call our attention to it. I just want to make this note about our intentions with this new 2021 edition of the Trustees Handbook. I would say that the content is not dramatically different from the 2014 version, but that version is now 6 years old. And so we realized last year that there were many sections that needed updating, and also many sections that just really benefited from shortening and streamlining the publication. So believe it or not, we've taken it from something like 130 pages to 85 or something like that. So we really did streamline it.
I think when Emily added pictures, though, it went longer.
Oh, it did go longer because we have some very snappy graphics in there now. But it is shorter. We know that. We wanted to reorder the sequence of chapters a little bit just to make the material flow more logically from the beginning to the end of the document. We loaded much more into the appendix, which we'll show you when we go live to show you the document. And we turned a couple of chapters into short summaries that we think should be really helpful for you to print and share with newly appointed trustees. So with that, we have a question for you, and we're going to do this in the form of a poll. Y'all should see this question on your screen. Nancy, are you seeing it?
I am.
Has it opened for your view? And the question is just asks, has your board used the previous edition of the Iowa Trustees Handbook? There's several ways in which boards have enjoyed using this resource. Tell us, if you would, in this poll, how you've used it.
Well, it looks like it's getting used in all the different ways we came up with.
So I think leading the responses, maybe I should end the poll so everyone can see the results. If you've made your answer choices here, it looks like 91% of people listening in have made their choices. So I'll just end the poll and share the results, and you'll be able to see that 66 of you answered that you've used the previous editions as a reference book when questions have come up at your board meetings. A good many, 54, are using it as an orientation material for new trustees. We like to think of this handbook, the earlier versions and our current one, as just really good material for both brand new people who are newly appointed to the boards, but also for experienced board members as well. As that answer indicates, you're using it as a reference book when questions come up.
And somebody did note in chat that it's now 101 pages. So still shorter.
Oh, it is? No kidding? Oh, at one point we were at 85 or 89 or something like that. See, that's what graphics do for you.
Yes. But it does make it prettier.
But not a great number of people have said that they share the resource with their city councils, clerks, and mayors. That's pretty easy to do now that our document is online on our website. You're certainly welcome to share this resource as those kinds of questions come up, whether they're policy related, budget related, even relationship related between the library and its city government. You're welcome to share this publication with your city officials. We're totally cool with that. In fact, I made that suggestion to someone I was talking with just today, that feel free to share this because it kind of lends credence to the advice that we give you and the consulting that we provide. All right. Thank you for answering that. And I think all I have to do is X out of this, but Nancy, you tell me if it disappears from view.
Well, it disappeared from mine because I closed it on mine, but as
Gotcha.
a co-host, I don't see it right now, but.
Okay. It should have disappeared from view. Thanks for telling us how you've used the book.
Oh, and thanks, Chris, because you said you had a 2080 agreement with the school, so you can share it with them. Yeah, when you have a partnership with a school, that's a good idea. Okay, and as we pointed out, if you joined us in October, Michael Scott, our state librarian, wrote a new letter for welcoming trustees. So this is different than the one that was in the old trustee handbook. So take a look at it because we're pretty thrilled with how it's working. And he was really happy to do it. He joined us in October and could not join us tonight. But Oh, well.
And I meant to say too at the outset that tonight's program kind of reprises one of the boardroom episodes Nancy and I did in October. But back then, even though we had these all the best intentions and great expectations that the handbook would be done by then, it wasn't. It wasn't, but we went ahead with that October broadcast anyway, and we could really only just kind of hit the highlights of what we expected the new handbook to include. So the benefit of tonight is that we actually do have a finished product now that we will eventually take you to and show you where you can access it yourself.
So we're going to give you tonight a much better look inside the new trustee handbook, and it is available online now, so you can get to it if you want. One of our goals, like Bonnie said, was to make this one a little more concise than the previous one. We felt like we repeated ourselves several times in the old one, and some of the information either is now out of date or can be found elsewhere and is much easier to find elsewhere, especially when we get to law issues and questions and answers. So it is a little bit more streamlined. It is more relevant, we believe. We've laid it out in a different manner and made it much more intuitive in how you find things. We've put the top roles of the library trustees first and tried to put the most important things first, so you don't have to go through the whole thing looking for what you're looking for. But that's kind of our goal. We've taken some information out of the trustee handbook and it will be on our website. And I'm going to give you a caveat tonight that hopefully we will tell you many, many more times before it happens, but our website is changing in the next few months. And so any links that you currently have bookmarked to our website will change because as all of the public library websites that get a site through the state library have changed or are changing, ours is too. So you know that it can't transfer over. The links will be very different. So some information, such as information on buildings, library buildings and stuff, we didn't think was as important to hold in the trustee handbook, and we have put it on the website, or will be putting more on the website once we move it, so that it's not just for trustees. A lot of different people in libraries need to know a lot of the information on building projects. So we made it a little bit more easily found. So a quick review. Our first chapter is called First Things First. And that is again, the most relevant information is right up front. So it kind of welcomes you to your role. It talks about what some of the things you need to know right off the bat are, such as get to know your library, review your your city's library ordinance, changing the ordinance, understanding some of the various roles, and how to recruit new trustees. And this is kind of a summary section, and we look at this one as a good resource that you can go in and print just this portion and use it as a handout to prospective trustees, put it as part of your trustee orientation, and just it's a nice thing to print and share. And Bonnie, you have to change slides for me. Okay, and now this one is this chapter 3 is the 5 primary responsibilities of library boards. Again, this is another one that would be really nice to print out and use as a handy guide. And actually, this one would also be really nice to share with your city councils or your city clerks, because this gets a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of what those roles are. And then each of these 5 primary roles that are listed in this one also have a whole chapter that follows them. So that's kind of nice. And those 5 primary roles are hiring the director, approving and monitoring the budget, developing and adopting policies, planning for the library's future, and evaluating service and advocating for advancements. Technically that's 6, but it really is just 5 chapters. So this kind of summary chapter is then followed by a chapter on each of them. Some of the additional chapters we put into the new handbook are listed here. Some are shorter than others. Some of them are then a lot more in depth. We took a lot of, like we said, we took a lot of what was in the old ones. We kind of reordered them, reformatted them a little bit. We did add a couple of new chapters, even though we were really trying to streamline it. We did add some additional content, and those were the culture of learning. And this was at Bonnie's insistence, because we now have a standard for trustees for a certain number of training hours every 3 years for the accreditation process. And so having a chapter on the importance of that, we thought was a good thing to include. And then we have a summary of the standards, which we did not have before, and the ones that pertain to library directors or library trustees, and which ones they really need to be aware of. So we've added that as an additional chapter, and I think that's probably a really good one to have too. You want to move ahead for me? Okay, so in the legal part, which was one of the really big parts of the old trustee handbook, we moved some stuff to the website, and we kept some stuff in the handbook. And our guide for keeping it in the handbook became the 9 to 10 legal issues that we hear about the most at the state library. And those are the ones we thought were most important to keep. Many of you know that Mandy Easter, our law librarian, has developed a library law FAQ, I think is what it's called. And you can find that on our website. And this is actually where you find it. Again, this will change. I'm going to have to say that a lot. But there is a searchable library law FAQ on the website where she has answered the same question over and over and over again. So made them into this FAQ document, and you can search it by topic. So you don't have to read through the whole thing again to look what you're looking for. But it's really nice now to kind of get to some of those issues that trustees run up against over and over again. From our perspective anyway, you may not have ever had it again, but you really want some information on how to handle it. And so the library law FAQ is a good place to look first. And your screenshot here shows you this little red arrow that if you look for, you can put a search term in, it's going to bring you several options. And then if you click on the view, which is that little circled area, that will then bring up what the details, what the question was, and what Mandy's response to that question was. And for those of you who don't know, Mandy is extremely particular in her responses and gets information from a lot of different sources and from lawyers, from the Attorney General's office. She makes sure her responses are accurate, at least at that point in time. And she does go back and update these as needed. But a lot of the types of questions or issues that you can find responses to are policy and legal concerns, HR issues, libraries as city agencies. That's a question we get all the time. Different programs and services and things you need to know about the legal aspects of those, funding and finance, copyright issues. There's a lot in there. So sometime if you're really bored, check it out.
All right. Well, Nancy mentioned a new chapter called A Culture of Learning. This is new to the 2021 handbook, and she's right, this was largely at my insistence, and that's because board education is a standard, and I'm sure that all of you listening in tonight are representing libraries that are meeting standards at some level. You're participating in the Public Library Standards program. Well, board education comes in at a Tier 1 standard, which is the basic, most fundamental level level of library service, we feel like board education needs to be in that grouping of fundamental standards. So because board education is an expectation, our feeling is that it really shouldn't come as a surprise to newly appointed trustees. This really needs to be fairly communicated up front in the recruitment process as people are expressing interest in serving on the library board. As you start to drum up names of people you think would make good board members when there are vacancies to be filled, um, be very fair and upfront with this education standard for library boards so that it's fairly communicated. We felt that including a chapter in the 21 Handbook that speaks to a culture of learning, and not just for board members, but for your library staff as well, it just helps you to carry that messaging. And as this boardroom series demonstrates, along with previous years and everything you'll see in our new education catalog, the State Library is here to help provide trustee training throughout the calendar year. What you see here on the slide is the Iowa Learns Education Catalog and Learning Management System. This came on the scene in September of 2020. It's a brand new and very robust education catalog. And that we wanted to share this with you who are trustees in the audience because you are also welcome to set up an account for yourself within Iowa Learns. You can set up a catalog account using your name and email. I really like that notion because when individual trustees set up their own catalog account, then you can browse the catalog for classes that are upcoming, for classes that look good to you, for ones that you would like to register for, and you can do it all in one fell swoop. And the other real advantage of this new software that powers our Iowa Learns catalog is that as people register for classes, the software is keeping track of the classes that people have registered for and the credits that you are earning. So that's a great advantage when it comes time for all of your libraries to report on the standards that you're meeting. It's a pretty slick way to find out just who did what on your library board if you have a catalog account. It's not required for trustees, certainly not, but we just wanted to offer that as an opportunity for you. I think I'll pause here, Nancy, for any questions if you've seen any come through in chat. If not, we are about ready to take you live to the trustees page on our website. We like to just kind of, build the anticipation of it all because, you just don't want to leap right into this. Any good movie has to start with, a lead in. Any good book has to give you some background, right? So I'm going to stop sharing the slides at this point, and instead I'm going to share the website that I've been referencing, and eventually Nancy will share the document itself. All right, hopefully you're seeing this page on the State Library's website. You navigate here as you do to find most everything that we've packaged for library boards and staff. Under the For Libraries space, this blue space on the landing page of our website. You'll click under 4 libraries from our home page. You'll click under 4 libraries. And then right now, there's an alphabet tab that kind of chunks out all of the content into the alphabet. That's going to change, as Nancy mentioned, when we are ready with our new website at the State Library. This will all look different, but much of the content will still be there. For now, you navigate that way. For libraries, click the T tab for trustees, and this is where you'll see the link to the new Trustees Handbook. But before Nancy opens that up, I also want to first share with you some other really nice resources that you can find here. And let me just say, if you don't have the background to experience, or to appreciate, I should say, how nice this looks, Nancy and I can tell you this looks super nice. Because Emily Bainter on our staff really cleaned up this section of our website leading up to the webinar tonight. She cleaned it up and it's very fresh, and it's just very streamlined. So let me tell you that in this left-hand navigation, if you click this link that says Trustees Video Series, here's what you will enjoy. You will see under Trustee Video Series, we have 6 pre-recorded video clips that Marianne Morey did a few years ago. Marianne is my counterpart in the Central District. She's the consultant there. And a couple of years ago, she recorded 6 different video clips. As you can see on the screen, they're very short, and they're in easy listening, easy watching. Some run 5 minutes, some run 8 minutes. I think the longest one maybe was 13 minutes. So there are 6 of these. I can tell you, though, that these need to be updated, and Marianne and I have pledged to revise these now that we have the new handbook in hand, because these were based on the 2014 edition. So Marianne and I will turn our attention to this in the coming months. But I just wanted to let you know about that, as well as there's a link to an open meetings webinar. Marianne was also involved in this, as was Mandy Easter with the State Law Library. This is a webinar that was done, I think, in 2016, but we've left it here because the topic is evergreen. And if you ever need some more information or background, it's really good information, especially for newly appointed trustees who don't necessarily come to their positions on the library board knowing much about Iowa's open meetings law. It's a very important law for your boards to be in compliance with. And from that link, you'll find a nice webinar with more background information. And then last but not least, this—
Are you getting it now? No, it says mute. Mute my audio.
And so last but not least, this third link on the left-hand side of this page takes you to the past years of the Boardroom series. I've done the Boardroom series in 2018. I did an entirely new series in 2020. And so here you'll see the recordings of all of those webinars. I think there are about 15 in total. So all of those webinars were 90 minutes. Admittedly, that's hard to listen to in one sitting at a board meeting. We understand that, but you could certainly grab a hold of these videos and play just portions of them, and maybe take a couple of months of your board meetings to circle back to these videos and play maybe snippets of them, maybe 10 minutes, 20, 30 minutes at a time, and then the next month come back and finish it out. That's one way of using these, or you can certainly use them individually as for individual refresh. All right, there's about 15 of those all together from 2018 and 2020. All right, so with that, there's one more thing I want to show you. See, I am building the suspense. At the bottom of this page, I did want to call your attention to ways for you to stay up to date. In addition to your attending our webinars like you're doing this evening, there are a couple of other ways that you can network and be sure that you're in the loop to receive bulletins and updates that are board related, news and information. You can sign up for the Trustees email list. At the bottom of this page, you'll see a link to do that. When you sign up for the Trustees email list, you'll get those occasional updates and bulletins like I mentioned, but you'll also receive the Monday Morning Eye Opener. That's a weekly newsletter that I write, and it covers current event topics and all sorts of news and reminders about what's happening in library land in Iowa. So that's the Monday Morning Eye Opener. If you're not yet subscribed to that, I really would encourage you to do so, and you can find the link here in that paragraph. And then right beneath that, there's another way for library board members to network with others in the state, and that is by looking at the Library Talk Forum. Library Talk is an online forum for the entire Iowa library community. It is provided and administered by the state library, where our library practitioners out there, most often it's library directors and staff, are talking amongst each other about trends, about questions they have of each other, and they are providing all sorts of helpful advice and experience to each other. So that's for the entire Iowa library community. You're welcome to explore more about Library Talk at the link on this webpage. So now I think, Nancy, I've explained what we want to and shown what we want to show on this page. I think you probably are ready to show the actual document.
I am, but you have to stop sharing first.
I will.
It's one of those technicalities.
I will indeed. There you go.
And then, well, why isn't it? Oh, there it goes. Okay, now I got to make sure I share the right screen because you don't want to see my notes. So are you seeing, you should be seeing the document now. Awesome.
Yes.
Let me get my mouse in the right place. So first off, I want to really call out, well, not call out, but give credit to Emily Bainter for all of the work she did. Emily is our communications person at the State Library, and she came up with a great artwork for the cover page. She did all of the editing, and she put it into this great format that it is now currently in. So it is, this document does live in Google Docs, and we have heard from one or two libraries that their city has locked their technology down so much that they can't access Google Docs. So if that is a problem in your community, contact your district consultant or district LRT, and we can get you a PDF copy of this. But if you can access it in Google Docs, and it looks like there are some people currently in it right now. This is a read-only copy, and it is really easy to navigate around. So on the left-hand side, you will see you have the table of contents. And the nice thing about it is each of these links on the side is clickable. So it will take you to the table of contents if you want to peruse that. And you can click on, well, maybe you can't there. I think you have to do it on the left-hand side. Obviously, this is still so new. I'm still figuring my way out around it too. But you can click through the different chapters. Another new thing is all the great artwork we have at the beginning of each chapter. That is thanks again to Emily. And she made it very pretty for us. It did not look this nice when Bonnie and I sent it to her. But then also within each chapter, we have subheadings, and then you can click through to whatever subheading you want. And there are some chapters like the one on hiring a library director that have many subheadings. And so you might want just some specific information, and you can just click through it and get exactly what you're looking for without having to read through a printed copy. So that is really nice. You can, if you choose, print this out for yourself. And I know a lot of people like to have the print document as opposed to reading it on a screen. And in order to do that, all you would do would be go up here to File, click Print. This is also how, if you want to save it as a PDF, you can do that. Make sure it's going to your printer, and it does take a minute to load, but in a minute you'll be able to see what it looks like when it will print. But if you wanted to save it as a PDF, over here under the destination, if you click on that, you usually have an option to save as PDF. Then you can save it to your computer if you wanted to. Trying to see if it will load quickly. It's on my home internet, so it's not as fast as my work internet. You will notice it's 51 sheets of paper. You might want to print it on both sides because that will save paper. So it's going to print like this nice document, and it just looks like a really normal printed document. So it's gonna be really nice, the print version of it. So that's always an option. Again, if you have trouble, give either your LRT or your district consultant a call, and they're more than happy to either help you do it yourself or print it out for you and get it, email you a copy of it. So I'm going to go down here to the appendix, because this is where we took a lot of what was in the old, within chapters in the old handbook, and we've pulled them out and put them in the appendix, again, so they're easier to find, and two, so they're easier to print if you just want to print one of these documents. So in the appendix, we have the sample city library ordinance, which the majority, I would say 99.5% of the libraries in Iowa have a city library ordinance that looks very similar to this or follows this format. It may look very different because it was done a long time ago, but follows this format. We do only have 2 advisory boards in this state, and that is North Liberty and Clive. All of the other library boards in this state are governing. So that is the majority of our libraries. We also have a sample agenda template that you can print off, or saving as a PDF wouldn't work. You can use and adapt. It would be really nice if it was more of a template and you can save it to your computer that way. I am not sure how to do that unless maybe you do a copy and paste. And you probably could do that and then use this as your template each month and just keep saving it filled out and changing it each month. That's what I do with my library staff meeting agenda. I use the same one. I just update it each month. We also have sample bylaws that if you want to review your bylaws or update them and they're in a totally different format, check this out. You might want to adopt some of these ideas or this format. That's entirely up to you. We also have a sample trustee orientation outline. So if you don't have an orientation program set up for new trustees, you might want to look at this and get one set up for any new ones you have coming in. Because that's also now, I believe, a standard to have a direct.
It is a standard. I think it's a tier 1 standard as well, along with board education.
So if you don't currently have that, here's a good place to get started. We have some in the old handbook and in a lot of the trainings we've done, we do library trustee assessments. And so we did pull those out of the chapter and put them in the appendix here so that it's easy to take them, print them out if you want, and do in a personal meeting or do it, do a copy and paste and send it in an email to trustees if you're going to do it virtually. But it's a good way to kind of assess the abilities or understandings of your various trustee members, and do it periodically. Every couple of years maybe you want to run through it and see how up to date you're keeping with what you need to know. So there's an individual library trustee assessment. There's the full library board assessment that the board takes as a whole and discusses. There is the checklist for tech-savvy trustees to see how technologically smart you might be. We also have the Code of Ethics, which I believe this is from United for Libraries or ALA. I'm not positive which one. But this is a good thing to familiarize yourself with, because being ethical in your position is extremely important in your communities. So that is here. We also have the ALA's intellectual freedom documents. So we have the Library Bill of Rights. And then we move on to services and programs from the state library. These were not necessarily listed out in the old handbook, and there are so many different programs and services that we offer from the state library that it's really helpful that you now have this document that, again, you can print and pass out of what all of the different services are. And it just gives a brief description about what all of them are, but this is several pages long. And then we also did a listing of different library associations that you probably would like to be familiar with. Anything from the Iowa Library Association to, excuse me, the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, United for Libraries, which is purposefully geared toward trustees, friends groups, and foundations. And so that is the document as it stands now. And I'm trying to remember where we did actually put some quotes in here too, but I can't remember now. They're not in every chapter, and I can't remember what chapter has them and what one doesn't. I want to say chapter 1 does, though. So
there's a good one in the chapter Culture of Learning. There's a good one.
Oh, is there? Okay.
One of my favorites, in fact. Emily did our artwork, and I was on the hunt for quotable quotes. So this is one of my favorites. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. President Kennedy. So those are scattered throughout the document to kind of connect with the topic of the chapters.
And I am not seeing the chat while I'm sharing. Bonnie, is there anything to pay attention to?
Lisa mentioned she wrote nice, and I think that was in connection with the summary of state library programs. I think, Lisa, good. that's where your comment came through. I think that is a nice addition to the handbook. And then some of those other glossary terms I think are also helpful. Someone else gave a shout out to the Monday Morning Eye Opener, which I'm always happy to hear. Saying that that's a really useful publication with good reminders and good information.
I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the chat, but I don't see it. Anybody have any questions about this? Anything you'd like me to go to or show you, or does it include? Okay, well, I will stop sharing then.
Oh, wait, we've got one.
Oh, okay.
We've got one comment that came in. Let me see. Oh, it's another shout out about the eye opener.
Oh,
okay.
You're making Bonnie feel really good tonight.
Here's a couple. Does it include a search feature? Someone's asking. It doesn't have a search box to look for keywords. I don't.
It does not.
No, it does not. But the chapters are clickable. The chapters are clickable over in the left-hand navigation. So you click the title of a chapter or even a subheading, and that takes you right to that point in the document.
Yes. Yeah, but if you did want to look like, if you were looking for intellectual freedom per se, and you wondered where that was throughout the document, there's not a search feature.
Right. And we did not this time include an index either. Our older versions had indexes, but they were multiple pages upon pages, and they were so hard to match up if we had to make a change in any content in the body of the document. Then we had to remember to go change it in the index, and it was horrible hard. So we skipped that part as well. We have a question, how do we find it in Google Docs? The link from the trustees page on our website will open for you into a read-only Google Doc. So you don't have to have a Google account in order to open it. It will open into a read-only document. So there's no editing capabilities for you, just viewing and printing and saving.
And I'm guessing once you have opened it, if you do have Google Docs, you would be able to find it then again in your Google Doc listing. But to get to it the first time, just go to our website and click on that link. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And Bonnie can bring it back to the room then, or back to the presentation.
All right. Control F is a question. Does Control F work?
I don't know in a Google Doc if it does or not, actually. Well, here, let me try it. I still have it up on my screen. It does, actually. Yes, it brings up a find box. So that does work in a Google Doc. So you could search that way.
Well, there you go.
I learned something new.
We could have used you earlier, Jeannie, when we were doing our dress rehearsal.
I honestly didn't know if that worked in Google Docs.
It never even occurred to me. Where were you? Where were you this morning, Jeannie, in our dress rehearsal? All right. Any other questions or comments as you've been perusing this? We know that this may very well be your first glimpse at this new publication. I hope it's not your first and last glimpse at the publication. There was no expectation on our part that any of you would have looked at this before this evening. We just wanted to kind of tout it and share that it's been 6 years since we produced a trustee's handbook. So 2021 is the year. Let me come back to the slides because Nancy has a question she'd like to ask of you.
I was trying to find my note. So another comment I wanted to make too is I believe this Google Doc, when you click on it from the website, can be read on different size devices. I believe it is adaptable to, so if you wanted it on your phone, you should be able to read it on your phone. I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So one of the things we wanted to do is with this new version, and I talked about this in October a little bit, is to come up with a pocket digest type of version of the handbook. And I saw this at one of my LSTA meetings a couple of years ago. We kind of did a show and tell over lunch of different things we'd come up with, and 2 different libraries came up with they have pocket versions, and what you're seeing on your screen here is Colorado's. And as you can see, it has different tabs to the right side of it with different topics on it. And what our plan is to develop something similar to this. It might not look exactly like this, but include just pertinent need to know type of information. And what I've come up with so far is information on open meetings, because when you need to know that, you need to know it right then and there. Information on the Iowa gift law, the standards and accreditation, or the standards for the accreditation program that are pertinent, list those out. But I'm also curious about what else you would like to see in this, because it needs to be useful for you to be useful at all. And what we're going to do is we are going to have these printed and we will distribute them to every library. And we will have a method down the road to get more. Not sure what that is yet. But that's our plan at this point in time. So anybody have any suggestions on what to click? You can put it in chat. Intellectual freedom. Oh, that's a good one. And I'm writing these down, so. Again, when you need to know what you need to know right then and there. So if you carry a notebook with you to all your board meetings, this would be just an easy thing to slide in there and have easy access to. Duties of trustees.
So that could be a summary of those top 5 responsibilities, maybe.
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be great.
Or even the first things first. I like that notion too.
So it wouldn't be as in-depth as the whole handbook is on any specific topic, but it could certainly give. Oh, and someone else asked me about that. One of our, thanks, Jillian. Their board would like, they'd lose it if it was on paper, which I totally understand. I'd put it, it would become a bookmark to me, even though it might be a thick one. They'd like an online option, so we can certainly look into that. There's probably a way we can put it on our website that then would be adaptable to different size devices. Thanks for that comment. I really appreciate that. Somebody said parliamentary rules. General overview of city finances, city budget, levy. Oh, that might be difficult. That's pretty much a book in and of itself, but
that's a long chapter too in the handbook. I can tell you that's a long chapter.
But maybe we could do basic. But we could certainly do the law on library financing. We could put some information on the 27-cent levy, at least to give you an idea of where to go to look for more.
And where the primary sources of funding come from.
Right.
City taxation, county taxation. Yep.
Yeah, a link of where to go for more, definitely, especially if it was an online version. It could easily click to different websites or even the handbook, of course, but different websites too. And just in case you ever want to know, a good alternative than the state library to find out, especially on city relationship type things, is the Iowa League of Cities. And feel free to contact them at any time. They are very interested in how libraries work with their cities, and we've partnered with them several times and will do so in the future too. We try to partner with them so city clerks get our point of view. That doesn't always happen, but.
In fact, just the other day, Nancy and I submitted a proposal to possibly do a session at the Iowa League of Cities conference in September of this year. So we'll see if our pitch was successful, if our proposal is accepted. It's just a very important partnership for us to foster at the state library, those other state agencies that work with city and county governments.
Become important. Thanks, Carrie, for I like your idea of always starting your meetings with character count statements. That's a great way to start a meeting. Definitely puts you in the right frame of mind to get your meeting moving forward. That's great. Okay, well, I thank you, everybody, for these suggestions. And I can't guarantee you when this will happen, but my goal is to get it within the next 6 months anyway. But I said that last year on this one, and then the pandemic hit.
Then a little something like called a pandemic kind of interrupted our ebb and flow, and all of our best laid plans to get the handbook done in 2020 just didn't happen. Nancy, did you mention with this Pocket Digest that we hope there will be some kind of mechanism for libraries to order more copies
yes.
than we are able to print and provide to you?
Yes. I mean, my goal is to have a printed supply at the state library. Even after we send them out, we'll print way more than what we need. And, I totally recognize that every library has a different number of trustees, and there are way more than 544 that we will need. So,
yes, thousands.
So we will probably have a supply of them at the state library. We have Iowa shares in order to get them to you, so that should be pretty easy. So yeah, it may be that there's a small cost for duplicate copies, but my goal would be not to have that happen. So, and Lorna's trying to verify the number of credits over a year. Is it 5, Bonnie?
Excuse me. The standard calls for 3 to 5 credits per trustee per year. Okay. So it's every year for everybody on the library board, and the suggestion is 3 to 5 credits each year, and that's really super easy to do. I mean, these boardroom webbies are 90 minutes each time, so it's pretty easy, and it counts to listen to any of those recordings that I showed you on the trustees page on our website. It counts toward board education if you play back and listen to the recordings of past webinars. That also counts. And a really good approach, I think, toward board education is to, especially when we have a new publication come out, like when the new standards book came out in 2016, now the new Trustees Handbook this year, is to kind of assign a couple of chapters every month for the board members to read. They read a couple of chapters in January, and then in March you come back and discuss what you read. And then in April, assign a couple more. In May, come back and discuss what you read. That's been a very common and I think a very effective practice for board education. And I've also heard that there are some boards that are doing something very similar to that by looking at different websites in library land. They will assign a website that's really very interesting to explore and learn more about, like the United for Libraries website, for instance, or American Library Association, or PLA, wherever it might be, wherever the website takes you, to have the library board members assigned to a website. They all take a look at it and explore, and then the next month come back and talk about it. Then the next month, choose another place to go on the web. I love that idea. All right.
Well, thank you for all of your suggestions on what to include in here. That will be really helpful as we start to get this put together. Because now that the handbook is done, I can focus now on the Pocket Digest version of it. So
there's no rest for the weary. We also have to redo those video clips too.
And the new director's handbook. And as soon as we get it all done, we'll have to start over on this one.
All right. Well, do be sure to continue to send us your questions, your comments in the chat space. But I do want to kind of give you a preview of what we are cooking up for the Boardroom 2021 as the year rolls out. I'll bet a good many of you joined us in 2020 when the Boardroom series last year kind of took a new spin. We used nonfiction books that we discussed in another venue. And our other venue is a webinar series that we do called Big Ideas Book Discussions. Those are, of course, online book discussions in our Zoom room, where each time, quarterly, we do those. We take a nonfiction book that is not really library related necessarily. Some of them are, but not many of them are. And we read the books, we come together to discuss them in a Zoom room, and what we're doing is finding those applications, the concepts of the book, how those concepts and ideas apply to library management. So Big Ideas Book Discussions tends to be our library directors and staff who join those. But last year I had the idea, why not get more mileage out of those Big Ideas discussions? Why don't we take those same books and incorporate those into our Boardroom series? And that way we are kind of applying those ideas to the business of the boards. So I really liked that in 2020. It was, I think, an effective way to freshen up the boardroom. Again, we got more mileage out of the books we were reading. I know that libraries purchased the books for their own collections, and I heard after the fact that many trustees emailed me to let me know that they read the books after the webinars as well. So we connected people with some really good reads along the way. What you see here are the titles that we used in 2020. And again, the recordings of these webinars are available and linked on the trustees page that I showed you earlier this evening. So because we so enjoyed doing this, or I did, well, Nancy did too. We did most all of these together, I think, didn't we? I think we did.
Yes, I think we did all of them together. Now that I look at all of the titles. Maybe not The Art of Gathering, but I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. The one called Upstream, that's all about problem solving. And so we looked at how boards come together to do problem solving. So that was our lineup for 2020. We're going to do the same thing in 2021, and here's where we're headed. We started tonight, of course, by touting our own publication, the new Trustees Handbook. But when we come together again in May for the next Boardroom webinar, we're going to use the book Inspiring Library Stories. This is a collection of stories from libraries across the country about how they have responded to the pandemic with very creative spins on traditional services. These are really all about community impact stories. Nancy and I discovered this title because we got an email one day from the Every Library group. If you're not familiar with Every Library, it really is an advocacy group that helps libraries all across the country to raise awareness, to raise community awareness, to advocate for library service, and to help libraries be successful at the ballot box, frankly. So the Every Library group in their 21 advocacy campaign had this idea. What if there was a quick and easy way to get Congress thinking about libraries? What if every member of Congress read the same book at the same time? And what if that book was about libraries? And so the Every Library group has chosen Inspiring Library Stories. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that February 13th is International Book Giving Day?
I did not know that.
Yes, it is. And so that's when the Every Library campaign to get this book in particular into the hands of everyone in Congress, that's when this public awareness campaign kicks off. So if you go to the Every Library website, anybody, individuals can donate to the cause. The Every Library Advocacy Group is hoping to raise money to be able to purchase that's a lot of copies. That's a lot of copies of this book. They hope to be able to purchase copies and get one into the hands of every member of Congress. And they say on their website that for every $20 they raise, that will enable them to buy one book to send to one person in Congress. So it's very similar to our, in concept, to our All Iowa Reads project.
One book, one community.
One book, one community. Sioux City Forever has done One Book, One Siouxland, where everybody reads the same book at the same time. So we thought that was a pretty cool project, and we want to come back and share this book with you in the Boardroom series.
Well, and I want to take it
May.
one step farther in that, every library group is thinking about doing it for the National Congress.
Mhm.
But wouldn't it be nice if the libraries in your county or your district do it for supply one of these books to your representative to the Iowa State House? And so our Iowa State House reads this book, maybe not all at the same time. I don't see that happening, but it would be a good one to gift them at some point to help tell the library story at the state level. And I will say many of our representatives and senators in Iowa are huge library supporters. We hear that a lot at the ILA Lobby Day on the Hill, and they always have great things to say. So it would just be another way to cement that.
Or even to your city council.
Oh yeah, that'd even be probably better.
to your city council for sure. And maybe this would be a wonderful project for a friends group to do.
Yeah, it would.
If you can't spring for that many copies out of your operating budget. A couple years ago, well, I guess it was just in 2019, Nancy, when you and I did, we led a discussion on the book 13 Ways to Kill Your Community, still one of our favorite book discussion titles. We heard from so many libraries after that the library friends group or the library itself provided enough copies to give to their mayor's office and to their city council people. So this, I think, would be another really nice title to do that with. Or use it locally in your own local book discussion groups. So that's what we have planned for May. In August, we're cooking up something. We haven't landed on the title yet, but we have plenty of time to make that announcement. And again, just like with the handbook tonight, we have no expectations that you necessarily are going to read these books ahead of the boardroom program. We'll have read them, and we'll share the ideas and how it relates to the business of the board. But certainly if you have time to read them ahead of time, more the better. And then in November, we're going to come back to the book that we're leading off our Big Ideas book discussions in 2021. We lead off our book discussions next month in February when we take up the title Wintering. I gotta move my...
The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times. Can you tell the pandemic's having an effect on us?
We thought that would be such a comfort book and such a comfort read. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we learned about this just a couple of months ago, and we thought this would be a great book to kick off our Big Ideas series as it starts in February. But because wintering has more appeal, we think, in a cold weather month, we're going to come back to this in the boardroom when we come together in November for that program.
And Cheryl commented that Palaces for the People is a great read. And did we not do that one for Big Ideas?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so.
We did that in Big Ideas, but that was before we had this genius idea to also use these same books in the boardroom webinars.
So maybe that's something we need to reprise. Bring that one back again.
Could very well be. Yeah, I think so many of them we've used in Big Ideas could lend themselves pretty easily to board discussions. All right, so that's it. That's our shameless commercial for where we're headed in the Boardroom 21. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, so we're pretty much at the end, so you're going to get done a little bit early tonight unless a lot of people have comments or questions. But my hope is that you will take this new handbook and review it as a board. Either review it on your own and discuss it and discuss maybe ways it can be used. Use it definitely in orientation with new board members. Pass it to your city council and mayors. Because we totally understand too that they're the ones who appoint new board members, and sometimes they, the better understanding they have of the job of a trustee, a library trustee, because there is a lot of work involved in many cases. Sometimes there's months you go where there's not a lot of work, and there's other times when you feel just absolutely inundated. And you are volunteers, you're giving of your time to do this. And so helping the councils and the mayors really understand what that role actually entails would really be helpful, I think, in the long run. And kind of build that relationship. The more information they have, the better they can serve you. Good. Cynthia says it's going to be part of their board education agenda in February. See, we have your agenda set out for you now. We've made your life easier. And thanks, Myrna, for putting how many trustees. I don't know if we remember to say that at the beginning. If you are in a group with trustees in your library, if you would put in chat how many are present, we can add that to our attendance total, and we would really appreciate that.
101 logins. Pretty good. 138.
And I know there are several groups out there.
138 people pre-registered, so that's a good showing.
So does anybody have any questions about the trustee handbook or the videos that are available on the website, how to access the handbook? Now's the time to ask, but certainly if you have questions, either trying to access it or print it, give us a chat or a call. We're happy to help you. That's what we're here for. Our goal is to make your lives easier. And while we can't do everything to make that happen, we can do what we can.
Well, we want to thank you so very much for spending your evening this way. We'll be hanging out in the room for a few minutes more. If you have questions that occur to you or more comments or observations, share those in chat. Otherwise, this wraps up our program for the Boardroom 21 series, the first of 4. So thank you again so much, Nancy. Thanks to you and to all of you for joining us tonight.
And Chris, yes, I believe you should be able to send it in Google Docs. I saw that question pass by in chat. Oops, wait, a question just went past. Continuing ed, do we keep track of how long we discuss educational topics during our meetings and any videos you watch? Yeah, the best way to do that is just make a notation in your board minutes, and then you can use that. You will be asked for verification in the accreditation process, application process. So if you make note of it in your board minutes, that's probably a really easy way to provide that verification down the road. Because again, it's a 3-year cycle, so having something you can easily refer back to. We did get a request, I think in the focus groups we're doing for online resources that we did, for some sort of a template or a form to use for the accreditation process. So we will be developing something to help with that process too, because I know that I can't believe we haven't thought of it before now. Good, Wendy. It's nice to know that you added that to your agenda. That keeps it front and center every month when you come up with your agenda. It's like, oh yeah, we have to do this. I need those reminders. I don't know about anybody else, but I definitely need those reminders. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for taking time out of your evening.